Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and today we're going to be repotting my Pieris, also known as a Forest Flame. So this is the tree that we're going to be working on today, and as you can see, this is a great big Forest Flame Bonsai, and I would go as far as saying this tree is at least 15 years old. It's been in my garden for as long as I can remember. It started off as a little stick, no thicker than one of these tertiary branches on the top, and over the course of many years it has stayed in a pot in my garden, and only until about 2 years ago I decided to take it, separate it because it was a clump from lots of other trees, and pot it into this smaller pot as a bonsai. I have found these trees to be extremely resilient. They're kind of hard to kill. They've got this beautiful foliage on them, and when spring comes, which is early spring right now for me, they grow these beautiful red leaves all over, hence the name Forest Flame, because it sort of looks like it's on fire. And not only that, it does develop this quite beautiful old looking flaky bark, and this has got some on the trunk here, and I think it looks really nice. And now before we start, the tools that I will be using in this video today are a bonsai root rake or a bent fork, a chopstick, some wire cutters, Jin pliers, and just in case this gets a little tricky, a root hook. And as always, by no means do you need all of these specialized tools. These are just the ones that I'm using. If you're new to bonsai and you're just getting started, you can get by with an ordinary pair of garden scissors. Chopsticks are pretty easy to come by. Just make sure that whatever tool that you are using is clean and sharp. Clean to avoid any fungal problems or diseases on the roots of the tree, and sharp because a clean cut will heal so much better and faster than a cut that has been squashed by a blunt pair of scissors. So I'm going to put the tree onto this. And we're going to start by just taking the tree out of the pot to see what's going on with the roots. The roots may not have fully filled the pot. I don't expect them to, but with the soil that this is in, I'd like to get it into a lot more free draining soil. So let's take this out. As you can see, that didn't fill the pot completely because it's only been in here for about a year, but it did fill around the edges, which is nice to see. It is good to note that Pieris trees like this one love acidic soil, so if you are planting it, you can add a little bit of ericaceous compost in along with your mix just to keep the soil acidic. Alternatively, you can place pine needles on top, and as they decompose, it'll make the soil a little bit more acidic. So let's just lay this back and see what's going on with the roots. All I want to do here is loosen up the old soil. I don't want to remove too much roots at this time because I don't feel like the roots in this tree are doing so well in the soil that it's in. So let's just slowly rake, and I'm raking outwards from the center of the root ball here, just gently. The roots on these trees do remind me of azalea because they're almost like spider web. And of course, like most tree species, the best time to repot these is early spring. I'm just going to take the root hook and see if we can loosen up some of the soil here. It is quite compact as it is. That's a little bit worrisome. In my mind, I'm not really happy with how these roots have developed, and they haven't really grown much since I separated from the clump. After examining the root ball, I can see there's plenty of roots on the outside, which is really good for what we want in bonsai. Here, as you can see, where it was separated from the clump, no new roots have formed here, so I think I've got this tree early and we are able to save this tree today. When I look at the underside of this tree, there isn't really any root under here, so we can rake away at this part to try and get more oxygen in that way. In bonsai, whenever we are faced with a problem like this and you go to repot a tree and you see that it maybe hasn't put on as much root growth as you had wanted it to, we sort of have to ask ourselves the questions, why did this happen? First of all, I think simply this tree wasn't in this pot for a long enough time to develop any significant root growth. But second of all, I think by me adding some ericaceous compost to this mix with the goal of making the soil slightly acidic did hinder the root growth a little bit because it made the soil more compact. And as you know with bonsai, the more compact the soil is, the harder it is for the roots to grow into that. If you think of the freely draining stony bonsai soil mix, it's got all these little air pockets for the roots to figure their way through. By adding compost, we sort of close them gaps, and the tree, for me even to rake at this, I'm tearing roots off left and right. I think my best option with this tree today is to simply repot it again, but this time into some bonsai soil with no compost. And there is lots of compost here that will keep the soil acidic as it is. The tree's in really healthy condition. The foliage is super healthy. So I think the tree's doing okay with the roots that it has here. I would just like more roots to work with. So for that reason, I'm going to put it into this plastic training bonsai pot. It's a lot wider than the pot that it was in previously. And I think this will give the roots a lot more lateral space to grow outward. Whereas when it's in a pot like this, it is restricted by the edges of the pot. So I think this is definitely a step in the right direction for this tree. When we put the tree into the pot, we want it to be super secure and stable so it doesn't wobble, because any slight wobbling from the wind will hinder the tree's root growth because it'll tear the newly growing roots. So for that reason, I'm going to add some wire into this pot through the bottom. I'm using some 2.5mm aluminium bonsai wire. This pot has got a little bit of a crack in the bottom, but it shouldn't be a problem. The tree will be fine. Before we cut wire, I just like to measure it. That way we aren't wasting anything. So I'm gonna put a little piece of wire over like this, cut that with the wire cutters. These training pots are great because they already have the wire holes in them for you. So I'm just gonna feed the wire up through one of the holes, bend it over, come across, hold it at the hole, take the Jin pliers, and then just bend a right angle. So that way, whenever it's pulled through, the wire will just sit flat on the base of the pot like that. The soil mix that I'm using in this video today is a mix of pumice, akadama, and lava rock. This will give this tree lots of drainage. So I'm just going to create a base layer of soil along the bottom first. I find this scoop's quite handy because as I pour it in, it sieves it for me. Now I'm going to create a little mountain in the middle to sit the tree onto. And this little mountain is just to ensure there's no air pockets underneath the root ball when we put it in the pot, because any air gaps that's in the soil, when you water the tree, the water can't reach the areas with air. You can see how much fine particles is coming off here. Now, as I sit this tree into the pot, I'm just going to sit it down on top of the little mountain we made. And I am still taking the time to consider the planting angle in the pot. Although this is a training pot, I still think planting angle matters, because the way that the roots grow in the future in that radial pattern in the soil will be determined from the planting angle. If we plant it like this, the roots will grow out that way. If you plant it like this, the roots will grow that way. So you really want this to be done correctly. I'm just going to twist it down, getting rid of any air pockets that might be under the tree. Now that I'm happy with the height in the pot, let me just shimmy it down a little more. I'm going to change the planting angle slightly. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm just going to wire over the top of the root ball to hold the tree in place. Then I'm going to grab these Jin pliers, and this will just help me wire it in as we can grab the twist, pull and twist. You want to make sure this wire isn't hitting your trunk, so you can either bend it out of the way or cut it. I'm pretty happy with that. So that side's secured. Now we got to do the other side. See how it's still a little wobbly. And now that this tree is nice and secure in the pot, I'm going to fill in the rest with more soil. Then with the chopstick, I'm just going to work out any air gaps that may be in the soil. I'm pretty happy with that. And now, just as the final touch on top, I'm just taking some sphagnum moss and putting it on the top of the soil. This will just help keep the humidity levels up as new roots begin to form. And in about 1 month's time, I'll take the sphagnum off just to ensure the roots don't begin to grow up into the sphagnum. I am pretty happy with this. In the coming weeks, in say about 3 weeks time, that's when I will begin to fertilize this tree. In order to keep the tree acidic, I'm going to use an azalea fertilizer on this and treat this tree like an azalea bonsai, and hopefully the tree will thrive. But all that's left to do now is to give this tree a water. And on that, I'm going to end off this video right here. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like in this video. It really helps out the channel a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Perhaps there was something you would do differently, or if you have any ideas for me in order to improve the health of this tree, let me know in the comments. I'm always open to new and different ideas in bonsai. If you would like to support me and the things that I do on this channel, hit the thanks button down below. And if you'd like to stay updated on all the things that I do off camera, please follow me on Instagram. It's at notionbonsai. You'll be able to see all the things that I do on there. But on that, thank you so very much for watching.